Thank, thank you very much for having me here today. It's a great pleasure to be celebrating women in diplomacy with you this morning. So who am I? Well, first of all, I'm a mum. I have two teenage children, a son who's just finished his first year at university and a daughter who's in her first year of GCSEs at school. I'm also a Londoner, born and bred, and so I'm very biased. I think London is one of the best, if not the best, city in the world. I enjoy sport, I love running, skiing a lot, and travel as well, the opportunity to learn about new places, people and cultures. In terms of becoming a diplomat, I was very lucky after university. I spent some time in Guatemala in Central America, and I learnt a lot about how the Civil War had impacted on people there, and that sparked a lifelong interest in working on conflict prevention and peace building. I then worked for a number of international NGOs in the UN on issues like banning anti-personnel mines, arms control, security sector reform, and then had an opportunity to apply to join the UK government as a conflict advisor. I wanted to see if I could actually change things more from the inside of government rather than from the outside of government. I've just celebrated 10 years of being in the civil service last week, and I definitely think I've had more of an impact working for government as a diplomat, particularly on issues like women, peace and security, and ending sexual violence and conflict. Yes, I think it's really important to have women in diplomacy. Women bring all sorts of skills, experience and knowledge to the role. They can do the job just as equally as well as men can. I think it's also important in terms of, say for example, me representing the UK government. I'm also representing the people of the UK, and women make up at least 50% of the population in pretty much every country around the world, so important to have women as well as men as diplomats. I think it's also important in terms of representing our values, and the UK government is very much committed to women's rights and gender equality.
خاتو رۆزی چەند گرنگە خانمان ئاڵنگاری بکەن لە موارەدا.
I think it is really important. I think there's lots that women can bring to diplomacy. I think that in terms of challenges, there are definitely challenges that women can face. I think often women feel like they have imposter syndrome, thinking that perhaps they need to work even harder to prove themselves. But I think pretty much all the women diplomats that I've met, they have all the knowledge and expertise, and it's just a matter of demonstrating that when they're in the room. They're all doing an absolutely fantastic job. So my family are hugely supportive. I'm really, really lucky. My husband in particular, he knows how important my job is to me. So he was brilliant when I said, I want to go and do this job in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. He's like, yeah, you have to do that because I know how passionate you are about your work. But I think importantly for my children, it's important that I can role model, that I can be a working mum and that I can have a really good job. And it's useful for my children and their friends to see that that's possible. I did watch it. I enjoyed it immensely. I think it's caused quite a stir amongst diplomats from lots of different countries. I know that some of the diplomats for the UK government were like, well, that doesn't happen. We don't get people who bring all these amazing dresses and pack our suitcases for us. But I think some elements are true. And I know that our Foreign Secretary did a great clip on social media talking about what's realistic and what isn't realistic in the diplomat. But in terms of entertainment and giving people some sense of what it's like, I think it's great. I'm super proud to be the first female permanent British Consul General here. It's a real honour. I've championed women's rights and gender equality throughout my life, so it's great that I can actually show that I've managed to achieve something myself as well. So I think it's brilliant having that. I think it's also useful for women within my own organisation to see that there are women in a number of these types of roles, but also for our hosts here in the KRI and for our international partners. So I think it's really good that you've got a number of female leaders in politics, in government. You've actually also got some fantastic women in business, in sport, in media, working for civil society. I've been really impressed by that. I think it is really, really important. I think young women and girls here need to see that it is possible to take on those roles. They are open for them, that women are already breaking that glass ceiling. I think obviously there's lots more that can be done, and I know the UK is supporting women's political participation. We'd love to see even more women involved in politics and government and throughout all sectors of society.
باشه اما کنارێکی سەرەتایە خۆت گەشتوونێتە ئاستێکی باش.
So I understand what you're saying. I think it is really important. I think you're right when you look at the region. Actually, there are lots of differences in different countries across the Middle East and North Africa, with some countries doing really well in terms of female representation and others less so. I think here for the Kurdistan region of Iraq, it's great to have women in those roles. And I think particularly for young girls and women, it's fantastic that they can see that they can take on those jobs in the future. But it is good, and of course I always want to see more women in those roles. Here and in the UK, we have our own challenges in terms of getting women into those roles. So there's lots that we can learn from each other. So I think it's great that there is a track record. I'm probably not the best qualified to answer your question, but there are obviously notable women in history in this region, which is fantastic. So it's not something new, but it's something that we want to continue seeing and see more and more of it. So I think it's really great to have women in senior leadership roles across lots of different sectors. And I've met so many amazing, inspiring, motivating women, not only in politics and government, but also in business and the media and civil society. So I just want to see more and more of that. But it's great that it's happening here. So I'll start by telling you a bit about women in the FCDO, in the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. We have an interesting history where women were first in the Foreign Office in 1782, so a really long time ago, but their role then was as housemaids, housekeepers. It wasn't until the late 19th century that women took on other roles, but that was just as typists when they got typewriters into the office. And then during the First and the Second World Wars, women were able to take on more roles because many men were fighting, and so there were gaps. But it wasn't until after the Second World War that women were allowed to be diplomats. But if they got married, they had to resign. You weren't allowed to keep working once you got married. And that was right up until 1972 when they then banned that. But now, women in the FCDO is completely different. Women make up about 50% of the workforce in the Foreign Office, which is absolutely fantastic. We've got women in key top ambassadorial roles in a number of important countries like Russia, China, the US, France, Germany, and also at the UN in New York, which is amazing. Here in the Middle East, North Africa region, we've got 11 heads of mission who are female, and of that 7 are ambassadors. So I'm super proud of that. I think that's brilliant and a really great example. We also have something in the office in London called the Mirror Wall Challenge, where the roles, the top jobs that still haven't been filled by women, they're mirrors on the wall, and it's meant to encourage women like me and others when they walk along the corridor to look at it and think, I could do that job. It also celebrates the women that have got the top jobs, so their photos are on the wall and we can see those numbers increasing, which is great. Here in the consulate, we've got 7 women in the team, which is brilliant. They make up about 41% of the total team. So we haven't hit the 50% mark. Slightly disappointing, but I still think it's brilliant. I think it's really good that we've got so many women in the team. They are all incredible. The whole team is incredible. But I think it also demonstrates, our commitment to recruitment based on merit and our commitment to gender equality. So I think it's a good point. I think women often bring different skills, different approaches. Sometimes that's about soft power, but it's not always about soft power. And I've met some really tough women that I wouldn't want to bump into a dark street. But I think that women do have a massive contribution to make. I think when you look at the evidence around peace negotiations, for example, when women are involved in peace negotiations, the peace agreement lasts longer and peace is more sustainable. Women can take on a whole load of roles in peace negotiations as mediators, as negotiators, as technical advisors, and I think there's still much more that we need to do in terms of making sure that women have access to all the jobs that are there in diplomacy. When I was a small child, I wanted to be the first female Prime Minister in the UK and then Margaret Thatcher. was Prime Minister. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to find something else to do now. But I think, you know, it is really important that we can all see that women can be in those positions of power. We still need to do more in terms of female parliamentarians. We've had a bigger number of female parliamentarians in Parliament than we currently do. It's dropped a bit, so we want to see that go back up again. We have a big push in terms of trying to make sure that women can be business leaders. We have like the 30% Club that really encourages women to be CEOs in big companies in the UK. I think there's been an enormous amount of progress, but there's still more that needs to happen. But of course, all those women that are in those positions are great role models and show that it is all possible. I think they're probably, some of them are the same, and then I think there are probably slightly different challenges. I think I don't feel like I face any particularly different challenges anymore, but I know when I was younger, often it could be quite intimidating working on the subjects that I did. Like, you're often walking into a room where it's all men and just you. But I think it's about being confident that you know your subject matter, that you have the skills, knowledge, experience. And as soon as you're demonstrating that, then you should be treated equally and fairly by everyone. But I know that sometimes that can still be a little bit of a challenge, particularly for younger diplomats. But I'm sure that will gradually change over time. I'm probably not the best at it. I'm a bit of a workaholic, so I have to really consciously think about making the right time for my family and getting that life-work balance correct. And it's also important that I show that I'm doing that to my team, so they know they should be doing that too. With my family, I want to make sure that I'm having quality time with them. So when I'm here, communication's really important. I need to make sure I'm, you know, calling them regularly, finding out what's going on in their lives, telling them a little bit about what I'm doing here. And when I get the opportunity to spend a bit of time with them at home, really devoting my time to them, including doing the household chores, because my husband's doing all of that while I'm here, so I have to make sure I give him a bit of a rest. Well, I think I might be getting a bit of a reputation for this, because I really love the dolma. That's fantastic. You guys are just so hospitable and generous. I go to so many events where there is so much food, which is all delicious, and I'm like, don't know where to start, and can I fit it all in? But the bit that is the worst thing for me is all the sweets, because I've got a terribly sweet tooth. So all the cakes and the sweets, I'm like, that is awesome. So yeah, I try and stay away from the sweets, but they are brilliant. So they'd be my favourite, but I have to be careful about that. So actually, I don't drink tea at home, but I really like the chai here. So I think it's Kurdish chai wins. So everyone that I've met who spends time here always says, I want to come back, it's such an amazing place. I think pretty much everyone falls in love with it, right? Everyone is so friendly and hospitable here. It's such a beautiful place. I mean, I'm lucky because I get to travel around a lot, and it's absolutely stunning countryside, and of course the food is delicious. So yes, of course, it would always be wonderful to have the opportunity to return, but I still have plenty of time left as the British Consul General, so you're not getting rid of me that quickly. I will be here for quite a long time still. I think I don't worry about being here, and obviously for my family it's important that they know that I'm safe and secure, and they know from everything that I tell them and all the pictures and videos that I send them, it's a wonderful place to be. So I think that it's wonderful for me to have an opportunity to meet all of these women doing amazing jobs, whether that's in government or non-governmental roles. I think that's really important. I think in terms of the NGOs who are providing support to women, including, say, survivors of conflict-related sexual violence, that's important work. I think there's obviously some collaboration and coordination between governments and NGOs on that issue, but at the same time NGOs are facing some challenges. So just knowing, like letting them know that we're here to support the work that they're doing, that is really, really important. Spending time with them, learning more about the work that they're doing and the challenges that they're facing, and also raising that with the government. I think there is lots of fantastic work going on, so it's really about letting them know that we're all here to support them. So I think, I was going to say that I think in terms of dealing with the challenges, men and women probably deal not necessarily in the same way, but they all deal with them. However, I think women are very determined. I think, you know, women can be very ambitious, and once they've set their sights on something, they will keep pushing through. So I think it's about being determined, being resilient, because obviously you do get knocks throughout your career, but actually learning from those is a positive way of embracing that, and being persistent. Like, you know, don't let those setbacks put you off. Carry on with your journey. I do think speaking to other people, learning from them, having a mentor is hugely helpful, actually, whether that's a man or a woman. But they're all steps that you can take to help you achieve your goals, and I think being clear about what it is you want to do always helps. I think it's probably both. I think obviously an individual needs to have that inner strength to keep trying and keep going, but of course it makes a huge difference if your family and your friends around you are really supportive. Like for me, I'm so fortunate to have a very supportive family and friends who are proud of what I do, and they tell me that, which is great. So I think it is both, and family in particular, being supportive of the ambitions that you've got, I think makes all the difference.